Are you building a real-time web application with React, Next.js and Spring Boot? Are you struggling to get your React client to receive messages sent by the WebSocket? On your Spring Boot backend, you're not alone. Many developers face this issue when trying to establish a bi-directional communication channel between their front-end and backend. Well, in this video, we'll explore the possible reasons why your React client with Next.js might not be receiving messages from the WebSocket on your Spring Boot backend. We'll dive into the concepts, explain the steps involved, and provide examples to help you understand the material better. Let's start by understanding how WebSockets work in a Spring Boot application. When a client connects to a WebSocket endpoint, it establishes a persistent connection with the server. This allows the server to push messages to the client at any time without the need for the client to constantly poll the server. However, when using Next.js with React, things get a bit more complicated. Next.js is a framework that enables server-side rendering and static site generation for React applications. While it provides many benefits, such as improved performance and SEO, it also introduces additional layers of complexity when dealing with WebSockets. One common issue is that the WebSocket connection might not be established correctly due to misconfiguration or incorrect setup. Another possibility is that the messages sent by the Spring Boot backend are not being properly handled or relayed to the React client. To troubleshoot this issue, let's break it down into smaller parts. First, ensure that your Spring Boot application is correctly configured to send messages to connected clients via WebSockets. Verify that you have a WebSocket endpoint set up and that it's sending messages to connected clients using the @send-to annotation or similar mechanism. Next, check that your Next.js setup is properly handling WebSocket connections. Make sure that you're using the correct WebSocket library or module, such as Socket.io, and that it's correctly configured to establish a connection with your Spring Boot backend. Another important aspect to consider is authentication and authorization. Ensure that both your React client and Spring Boot backend are properly handling authentication and authorization for WebSocket connection. If authentication fails or the user doesn't have the necessary permissions, the messages might not be relayed to the client. Additionally, it's essential to verify that there are no issues with CORS, cross-origin resource sharing, configuration. Since WebSockets involve establishing a persistent connection between different domains, ensure that your Spring Boot backend is correctly configured to handle CORS requests from your React client. To summarize, the main reasons why your React client with Next.js might not be receiving messages sent by the WebSocket on your Spring Boot backend are misconfiguration or incorrect setup of WebSocket connections, messages not being properly handled or relayed to the React client, authentication and authorization issues for WebSocket connection, CORS, configuration problems in establishing a bidirectional communication channel between your front-end and back-end can be challenging. However, by understanding the concepts involved and breaking down the problem into smaller parts, you can troubleshoot and resolve the issue. If you're still facing difficulties or have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it helped you understand the topic better, and subscribe for more content on building real-time web applications with React, Next.js, and Spring Boot